In this video, we're going to solve the problem in the top left here. What is the density for a mass that is 345 grams and 789 milliliters? Before you start doing any type of equations, what you want to do is identify what the numbers and the units of everything are. So I like to highlight or underline or box the numbers and units in any word problem. Then we can focus on what those numbers and units mean. So the number is not going to give you any indication, but the units will give you an indication of what it is. Grams, the G here, is always representing a mass. So what I want to do is I want to write down I have a mass, and that mass equals 345 grams. The next number, I'm going to look at the units, milliliters. Milliliters is a type of volume. So I'm going to write down volume equals 789 milliliters. Now this may seem like a very trivial and time-wasting step, but I assure you it's not. It's usually the best first step, and the most important step in solving any word equation is identifying what you have. If you can't identify what you have, you can't identify where you're going. It's like a map. If you can't say where you start on a map, there's no way you can say where you're going to end on a map, because you have no reference for the starting point. What you also want to do is you want to write down what is the density. This is the question that's being asked for. So you want to write down what they're asking for as part of your problem or your organization. And I know, again, this seems really trivial, but it will help you a lot when problems get more complex. What everyone thinks is simple problems, I can just think of them all in my head and be done with it. That works fine for simple problems. But you want a technique that'll work for both simple problems and more complex problems. When you have 5 or 10 or 15 pieces of information floating around, you're not going to be able to keep all of that in your head. There's a myth that floats around. Those people that are smart can do everything in their head. That myth is false. You should never listen to that. Those people that are smart actually write everything down and organize it. When you think about famous scientists like Einstein, what you do is you picture him up against a chalkboard writing a bunch of stuff down, right? He's not thinking of everything in his head. He's organizing his thoughts on a paper, on a chalkboard, on somewhere. After we have all of this organized, what we're going to do is we're going to find our equation, and we're going to write down our equation. D stands for density equals the M stands for mass over V stands for volume. So what this helps me do is it helps me to guide where I need to put the numbers in my mathematical equation in order to solve. Personally, I like to write them either right below or right beside. In this equation, I'm going to write them right beside. So for my mass, I look at my mass and I say I need 345 grams to go in place of where my mass should be. Then for my volume, the volume, I need to put in 789 milliliters. this will all equal some kind of density. Now, if I get out my calculator, I can do 345 grams divided by 789 milliliters. 345 divided by 789 equals, so this all equals about 0.437. What I like to do is copy what I had above. Density equals 0. Let's look at that again. 437. 437. And the units of density are going to be a combination of the exact units I had before. The units are going to be grams per milliliter. You can also write per 1 milliliter. Another way to write this same answer is 0.437 grams per milliliter equals density. Now, whether you write it this way or this way doesn't matter. I think it's easier to visualize the first way I wrote it. A lot of students have trouble interpreting what this means, and so I don't tend to use it a lot. But the answer to the problem is the density is 0.437 grams per milliliter.